It's one of the conversations I've been most excited to talk about because we've been talking so much in the last.
Yeah.
I mean, the last year. It's been about a year,
Yeah,
and we're finally kind of in this space right now in terms of putting it all together. But I want to talk with you about the future of IEP.
I don't mind sharing my background, but I just don't do it often because I don't think where we're at is definitely because of me. I think it's a lot of people, a lot of support. But I was Army infantry. What I don't talk about a lot, which again, nothing more than I just don't feel like it's necessary. But maybe in this situation, I went through the 18 X-ray pipeline, went through selection, got selected, and I was going through the Q course. I ended up getting hurt. I got med boarded out. It was a really hard time in my life because I felt like, I got med boarded. I felt like it kind of was taken from me. Like I didn't get an opportunity to recover or get back in the Q course kind of thing. At that time, it was just kind of like, you're done. And really hard time in my life. When I look back at that though, I was a Division I athlete. Like I felt physically prepared, but as soon as it got hurt,
everything changes.
Everything changes, right? And knowing what I know now, looking back, I trained like an idiot. Like I was so stupid. I did, but you don't know any better, right? Like you just don't know what you don't know. Like I was physically solid, but then it was one of these things where it was just like, okay, well, if something's good, more is better.
Yeah.
Until it's not.
If you knew then what you know now.
And if I knew then what I knew now, right? And it's in all seriousness, like I may be in a very different place. But that's not what happened, right? So I get med boarded out. And then at that time I was pretty poopy pants, not a good place. And I go into PT school. I've got my Heather and I had my daughter already. And so I was like, man, you got to do something. Like I didn't know what I was going to do.
This didn't work out.
This didn't work out, but I did not have a plan B at that time, right? Mm-hmm. And so I get into PT school to get my doctorate, and still, even at that point, I was like, I don't know what the hell I'm doing. But because they moved the PT to a doctorate level program, I started doing research. I really started hyper-focusing on special operations units, primarily SWAT teams at that time in the North Carolina local area, where we were looking at human performance and how it pertains or how it correlates to shooting. This is the research that I was doing. And so when we started doing that, I was just like, okay, this is my jam.
There's something here.
There is something here. I was finding that there was a massive disconnect and a deficiency in the training. There was not what I believed, and I still don't, of what they deserve, what they were not getting, right? Is strength coaches or human performance that make them the best at their job. It was just kind of like, oh, yeah, go do your own thing. You figure it out. And it's like, Tom Brady doesn't get that, or that's not how Tom Brady's handled. He has the best people in there making him better. And we're taking all these people that are doing a lot of things for all the communities that they serve, and we're just being like, good luck.
Yeah, they're just kind of throwing something at the wall and seeing what sticks.
And so I started doing all this research. I had a super cool opportunity to go out with a unit that was at the federal level that was very secretive. And I got a really cool opportunity to kind of see into a whole nother world that I knew nothing about at that point in my career. I went out there, they were building a huge human performance program. Fortunately, I did not get that contract because I'm pretty sure if I had, I would have dropped out of school. That would have been a mistake. But fortunately, I did not. But I also did a good enough job in building relationships. And next thing, they made a couple of phone calls. And in that world, it is word of mouth. It's definitely not a situation where you can look in the phone book, that agency and
send an email.
Yeah, send an email, right? And so got my first contract, and literally when I left out the facility from them, started in Extremis Performance. Did not know what I was doing. I was just like, I think there's something here. And I was like, hey, we'll learn it on the fly, that kind of thing, right? Got my first government contract while I was in PT school. And then as soon as I graduated, like I just hit the ground running. We got a couple of contracts at the federal level. I was still in North Carolina at the time. My family and I moved back to Texas. Then I joined the TTPOA, which is Texas Tactical Police Officer Association. When I joined it, they brought me on to the training advisory board to where I was able to start working with a lot of the teams in Texas. Somewhere in that process, I guess during one of the federal contracts, I brought in Aaron at that time.
Right.
So I was reaching a limit there where I was growing a lot in what I was doing, but I was reaching a limit where I was like, okay,
bandwidth.
It was a bandwidth issue. And I saw it in some of the larger special operations units that had human performance programs already. They weren't bringing in Billy Bob off the street or out of the local gym that, likes a personal trainer. They weren't asking, hey, this hotshot over here, who's the PT stud, to build their workouts. They were going and getting strength coaches from the NFL, bringing them over and saying, make us better.
Which sounds like a good idea.
And I think some of the units did a good job with it. However, I think that some of them also, though, were bringing in strength coaches from the NFL that were trying to make them NFL players,
right? Which
is not what they were, right? Special operations is not the same
not culturally
as the
competent.
NFL,
not
right?
culturally competent.
Exactly. I felt like I saw that as deficiency. I've said this before in Instagram lives, and I've had some of these coaches come to me like, well, I'm not doing that. Like, listen, that's fine. It's not a black or white. That's not everyone.
Just because you're a football S&C guy doesn't mean you can't be effective.
Exactly.
Here.
I'm not saying that, you're a piece of trash or anything like that. I'm just saying that I saw a lot of people that weren't out rucking. They weren't out shooting. They weren't out drop zones. They were not out truly understanding what these men and women were doing to be most effective. Again, not everybody. I know there are some of you that are doing it, but I'm just saying as a whole, I think it could have been done better, which when we started doing it, I brought in Aaron, strength coach, Division I level, multiple programs. And I said, that is what you do as a football coach. That's not what we're doing here. We sent him through a basic SWAT school. We put him out.
Aaron through the basic.
I said Aaron through the basic SWAT because, and again, not that
just from some experience.
Absolutely, and I, just so everybody knows, for me, I did not do anything cool in the military at all. But at least I had a little bit more of an understanding, right? And so that was really important to me at that time because I saw that as a deficiency and I wanted to provide a solution. And so when I brought Aaron in, he did a great job of, okay, wow, this is how it's different. Now use your expertise to make them better, right? And I think that was a big tipping point for IEP at that time because that's what we tried to hang our hat on. When we built programs, I would tell him like, if you put that in the program, you better be able to articulate why it's in there and where it applies to their job.
Yeah. So how's that worked out?
It's been, I think we've done a great job. I think we've gained a lot of trust. I think we've proven multiple units we've worked with at the federal and local levels, injury mitigation. So we can show objectively injury rate decreases, performance increases.
It's
measurable. So whether it be 1 rep max or PT tests, we have been able to show a significant and objective, which
data is important in this world.
So everyone's on the same page. There's a different objective and subjective. Subjective is an opinion. Objective is a fact, right? We capture a lot of data, which again, the reason it wasn't so much because I was a nerd and I just wanted to collect data. Objectively, are we making a difference? So we can self-correct. Additionally, objectively, by testing on, and we do surveys and all this different information we're collecting, I do believe has made us subject matter experts. We can give operators feedback, whether operator, officer, I know people freak out over operator word, but regardless, SWAT, special operations, whoever you are, I'll tell you right now, we have surveys over 400 people that we've tested. And one of those questions is, what do you think you do? What is most important? What do you do? And I'm going to go ahead and give you heads up. They don't align. Yeah. They're actually inverse. And I'm not knocking. I'm just saying we did build an expertise because we tried to objectively go in and look at what is it that you're doing and how do we make it better, right? What are the deficiencies? So I think we did a good job in the human performance side. With that, like I said, we're at the TTPOA, or I'm serving it within the TTPOA at that time. However, there was one specific unit at the federal level we had a very good relationship with. It was kind of where I'd started Aaron out. But one of the things that we did that was critical, that it was kind of a light bulb moment for me, if you will. We'd went out, we were doing a lot of training with them specifically in the gym. However, as at this point in my career, I liked job task analysis. So everybody understands what that is. A subject matter expert will come out, they watch you do your job, and then they give you feedback. Right. Here's how you can be more efficient with your job, right? And articulate, here is what your job actually is, maybe what you think it is, but here from the expert level, whatever they're looking at.
It's like a position coach on the football team.
It's exactly, right? So we did a job task analysis with the team. So we were watching them do live runs in the shoot house, live runs in other places that they in their mission capabilities. So we watch all these live runs. We would train them in the gym to meet those live runs. Then we go to the flat range with them. And it was like, breaks. I was like, this does not align at all. And I remember thinking like, I mean, I've seen a lot of teams, but like this was my light bulb moment, right? Of like, why are we doing this versus what I think we should be doing over here?
Give me an example.
Yeah, so we're doing a lot of runs in the house, right? Or they are doing a lot of runs in the house. It's move, whether it be HR, even a slow search, if you will. They're still moving. We go to the flat range. They're standing still. And it's not just standing still. Back then, I probably couldn't articulate it, but especially now I can. I was looking even at their stances and their posture. It was
contradictory.
Completely polar opposites. How they moved in the house and then how they moved on the flat range. I shouldn't say that. I saw the transition over to the movement side. Whereas like, I think at that time I would see somebody move and I was like, man, that just looks awkward. But I didn't have enough experience to at that time be able to diagnose it, where it was coming from. Then I go see it on the flat range and it was like, holy crap, that's where it comes from. Because they're standing in a position, a closed pack position in the joints to where it's like, yeah, that feels good.
For stability,
for standing still. Yeah. But you're not moving, right? And so that's a big aha moment. And I remember we had some, again, we were really close with the team. We had a good relationship. And one of the guys specifically was in a leadership position. I will never forget this guy. One of the guys on his team had they were all wearing kit and they had SOPs. But this team leader was he's a close friend of mine today, but back then somebody who just is one of those guys you see him and you're like, man, I respect him, right? Mm-hmm. And he, I remember one of the newer guys had changed his kit, and I remember he didn't get after him. He just said, "Why?" And the guy couldn't give him a why, and he was like, "Listen, bro, I don't mind if you do, but you need to be able to articulate to me why." And so I remember whenever I went to him with this idea, I was like, why do you do this? Mm-hmm. It was my question. And he was like, that's a good question.
Him up on his own game.
But you know what he said? He goes, well, how would you do it? And I was like, damn it.
You didn't have an answer.
I didn't think that far ahead.
You didn't have the solution.
At that point, I didn't. Because I was still kind of sorting it out in my brain, right? But I appreciate him. And again, he's a good friend because he didn't, be like, get out of my, kind of thing. He said, okay, we'll come up with a plan and let's try it. And I was like, okay. And so we built, at that time, very rudimentary drills that I, again, did not know what I was doing at that point. But we built some movement drills. But then there was another flaw in the system. It was like, okay, well, can you do it? And I was like at that time, I wasn't a shooter. And so it was kind of like, probably shouldn't. But that was a huge spur for me. It was like, okay, I better get my crap together. If I'm going to start pitching this as an idea, I need to be able to do it.
So when you say you weren't a shooter, it's not that you didn't shoot. It's just that you weren't at the level to maybe feel confident standing in front of people teaching shooting.
Exactly, yeah. And I think you know me well enough, but I'm very hard on myself. And if I'm going
understand.
to get up and
clarify.
Yeah, exactly. And I appreciate it. I think, it wasn't that I didn't shoot at all. It was just, I did not feel like it was at a proficiency level to be able to teach somebody at that point.
Respect that, because a lot of people walk in not understanding that about themselves.
And additionally, I think more so even, it was more so that it was just like, I grabbed a hold of a gun and shot. I couldn't explain to you why.
Yeah, gotcha.
Right? And so, again, my personality, like, that's not how I want to be perceived. And so I wanted to understand. So anyway, all that to say, we run this day and they were like, hell yeah, this is amazing. Give us more. So from that, we left. We came back to the TTPOA and we were like, all right, we're going to pilot this course. We want to give back to law enforcement. So we built this 2-day course to where we brought in coaches that were experts, the errands, PTs, strength coaches that have their master's, doctorate, whatever. And we gave them the information, said, how do you treat this SWAT officer like a professional athlete?
Special populations.
Special population. So we took one day and we educated the SWAT officer. This is how you should be seeing yourself as a professional athlete. Here's how we would teach you and train you. And then we taught them movement. We taught them lifting. We taught them diet or nutrition, whatever, in day one. In the movement side, though, then we moved over to day 2 and we said, okay, so here's how it should look. Because most teams go from, they'll train in the gym, they'll train in the shoot house, and then the static range is generally way different. So we knew the place we needed to target was the static range. Mm-hmm. And so we started building movement on the static range and how do we teach and educate, right? Mm-hmm. And so we built this 2-day class. We ran 3 of them across the state of Texas for free through the TTPOA to really try to give back, but also build and pilot this concept to what it's grown into today. What we did not expect was for it to grow at the rate it did, because yes, we felt like we were identifying a need. We didn't know how much of a need it was.
You didn't realize the demand.
We didn't realize the demand, right? And so what started off with Aaron and I really high focusing on the human performance, along the way, that's where we had Sal.
The shooting stuff,
Preston,
the shooting stuff really
Anthony,
expanded. Yeah.
To where we brought in these guys, and it's always funny when we teach. Not always, but we get people to say, "Hey, how can we work with you guys? How can we teach? How good of a shooter do I need to be?" And I always tell guys it's not a proficiency thing. Now, generally, I would say I haven't seen it the opposite, but don't chase proficiency. Can you teach?
Capability.
Do you understand the why? If you can do those two things, more than likely, you're going to be able to have a high level of proficiency. Sal, Preston, who at that time, Anthony, when those guys came through our course, we were like, this guy's different. Like, they have taken the time to understand the why. Additionally, those guys are really, really important and critical and crucial to where we are today. And that's why I'm getting all this backstory, is because Aaron and I think, understood the human performance and how we were applying it. But there was multiple times those guys would be like, yeah, but that's not how we do it.
Mm-hmm. They understand the culture and the application.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Those guys have taught me more about shooting and where I am today than anybody else has. I don't care, some of the world champion shooters that I've either shot with and or watched, those guys have taught me more than anyone else, because they understand, they're good teachers, and frankly, I trust them because they are good at, this is how we do it. Here's the things I've seen. Jake, go mess with it and figure it out what works best for you, right? So we build this 2-day course. It goes really well. From there, we start bringing in instructors that are primarily at that time shooters. We identified this need. This year, we have grown exponentially. Like, literally, it's been a huge blessing. Damn, I don't know why that made me really emotional. Because I think the growth, it has been a lot of support. And
about the people, it's been the people.
It's been the people. Yeah, exactly. I think of where I started at a rough place. Sorry.
As you were saying, like poopy pants.
Yeah, poopy pants. Yeah, exactly. Poopy pants.
With no direction.
With no direction, to then have all these people step in and build something that, again, not a Jake thing. It's all these other people that we've tried to preach, but also through action show, like, no, we genuinely give a shit. Like, we care, we want to make a difference. And in law enforcement, military, civilian shooter, I don't care who it is, we'll help anybody. And I think that the people that have been involved in this, it has just been huge. And so we build this class to demand, like, it's booming, and we're trying to figure out where we're going, what we're doing, because I didn't feel like there was a solid blueprint at that time, because we were solving a problem that I don't feel like I could look at one specific person and be like, ooh, they've got to figure it out. I'm going to kind of go along that route. And so this year we've taught a lot more shooting, right? We've had multiple agencies calling us for their SWAT weeks. The federal agencies bring us in to teach, quote unquote, advanced rifle courses or whatever it may be, right? Because the overspeed training, the overload training, like the processes that we're taking people through, especially as it pertains to movement, I think that the way that we're going at it, straight, it's hard for me to say sometimes, but I don't think anybody else is doing it. And I don't think anybody else is doing it near to the level we are. The time and commitment we've put in, but the objective information, the really understanding the community, and then bringing in expertise to make it palatable, or maybe not palatable is not the right word.
Digestible and applicable.
Applicable, yeah. Yep. How do we take our nerd side and introduce it in a way that is understanding and be able to be applied?
So I think this is an interesting, so a couple of things that resonate with me. One is the things that you saw coming in. This is when I jumped into this community to train, the same disconnect pieces that you were seeing, that you're articulating so well right now, are the same things I saw, but I wasn't sure what I was seeing. Yeah. I was like, hold on, this isn't adding up. Like, I see people training on the flat range, but then for me, there was a lot of social media stuff happening for me. Like, I was just taking in the whole, and trying to figure out who the people were. I was seeing all this, call it what you want. There was USPSA. I was like, what is that? IDPA, what is that? Like, all these CQB classes, what is this? I mean, I kind of knew what that was, but now people are teaching those and people are arguing about it. And I'm like, what is that? And what I was seeing was so there was a disconnect between what I was seeing happening on the range in terms of instruction, because I was getting a lot of instruction from a lot of people at the time.
Yeah.
And then what was happening specifically in these classes that I was seeing happening, and then the communication of how that was all going down. And then it's like everything just down to basic fitness level to be able to perform the things that you're teaching or coaching somebody.
Yeah.
And then again, the disconnect between you're standing still and now you're asking them to move and do something different and use the same skills.
Right.
Okay, well, some of those skills transfer, right? We talk about the fundamentals and everything else.
Sure.
But there's a disconnect here. And I'm not sure how to put this together, but I feel like I can help based on my background, right? Because I know what I'm looking at. There's gaps.
Yeah.
I just don't know, going back to the culture, like what's the truth about how this would actually be applied, like all of that. And so that's where I really dug into studying it and immersing myself in just being a student and a white belt in this whole thing and trying to take all that information in. So when I started to understand it better, and then I ran into you, and then I was introduced to you, and I'm like, here's a dude that's actually articulating what I wasn't able to articulate. And so the dots were all there for me. And then I guess what I'm saying is like, you were the dude that like brought all the dots together, and it was actually like one dot. If I had to like, and what that specifically was, I'm not really sure. But once that one dot connected, then all the other ones immediately connected from. I'm like, holy shit. Like, and in a sense, and you say this, and I don't think this is a bad thing to say, is that you really feel like you're subject matter expert in what you're doing and not anybody else is doing it. I believe you. Like I fully believe that. Like, and if it is, I don't know where it would be happening, because fuck, dude, I talk to a lot of people, right? And I've been searching for it, and maybe it's happening underground somewhere. And I'm not saying nobody else is doing it.
I'm always.
But you're making it accessible, right?
Well, we're trying to,
trying to. And so that's where I was like, I need to be around this more. I need to figure out how, because I wanted to help. I want to be involved in this, because I think I have some things to bring to the table after the 25 years I've spent in the fitness and human performance industry, and working with all different types of people, which is really, at the end of the day, like, people hear that term, officer or operator. I don't give a shit what you call it. You can be upset if I hurt your feelings. I don't care. But here's, at the end of the day, they're just people.
Yeah, absolutely.
They're humans. Absolutely. And I've worked with so many of those and seen them not connect dots themselves. And I know how easy it is to get them to connect dots if you know what you're doing.
Sure.
I'm not saying it's easy to get them to perform well, but it's easy to get them to connect dots to then improve their performance incrementally. And that's what I was like, okay, I got to jump. I got to figure out a way to be involved with this, because these are the guys that are doing it.
Yeah, man. It's just been such a journey. And I think you said a lot of things there that I could not agree more with. From, I think early on for me, exactly like Preston, Sal, Anthony, those guys helped me understand the community, right? Yep. Which, to your point, you see all this stuff and you're like, dude, what is going on? There's so many moving targets. And it took those guys to really help me isolate, right? Then you move on to the team we're putting together. Mm-hmm. Before I get to that real quick, the other thing you said was how different people are teaching or educating and using. This is one of those ones we see in the culture, right? People get super pissy about marketing, right? I think that's something we've tried to do a really good job of. We're not black and white. There's gray in there. We're always learning. We're trying to make it understandable or easily understandable. And I think we've done a good job at that by really trying to refine our expertise in our area. We don't push it over into any of these other groups because that's not our expertise, right? We've tried to be the expert here first. Now, can it apply all those areas? Absolutely. But we've tried to be here first.
It's the Venn diagram.
It's a vendor.
Yep.
Yeah. So Matt Prank and I have talked about that actually on multiple lives before. Of like this Venn, for those of you who cannot see my hands as I'm doing this, excuse me, the Venn diagram, if you're not aware of what that is two circles that are overlapping. You've got pieces of those circles that do not interact, and then that middle little sliver that does, absolutely, right?
And then there could be multiple circles.
There can be multiple circles,
cross
exactly.
over one another, yeah.
And we've tried hard to be that piece of the Venn diagram that said, we're experts over here, but this is going to impact this sliver on this piece, right?
How can we help?
How can we help? Exactly. And I think that's allowed us to, by having that attitude right there, how can we help? We've tried hard to earn, I'm going to use that very intentionally, earn that respect. In the industry where we didn't come in and we're like, you're an idiot. How do you not know this is how you should be moving? Right. because I think we needed to earn that respect and earn that expertise of saying, no, educate me on the shooting piece. Educate me on what the CQB looks like. Educate me on this over here. Here's my expertise. Let's talk and have a discussion here. And we've been super fortunate to have guys like Matt Pranka, who we've gotten on lives and had some of these discussions. And it's always a learn. We're always trying to learn and grow, right?
It's also been a very positive experience for me from the outside looking in and then also sort of being intimately involved with some of it, and that ends up turning out to be a very positive experience, right?
Absolutely.
It's a huge growth opportunity.
Yeah, man. And so, I think we've covered, the retro piece and kind of where we currently are.
Kind of brings us to now.
And I want to bring us to now because I think this is a critical piece. And the purpose of this episode, I just can't say enough how blessed I've been through this journey and the team that we've now built and the people we're bringing into the company. And so we've got you, obviously, that's entered, Jacob Hepner, and then obviously Aaron was already here. We've got Hep from the background. And then Sal, Anthony, Preston, just huge guys. And we've got other guys too. It's not just this core group. We've built a solid team, but those are the guys I think through this process have really like sunk their...
It's an A team.
Yeah, man. Sure, absolutely. Man. Absolutely. And the thing that I appreciate about it a lot, we're bringing these different expertise.
Go back to the Venn diagram.
Exactly. Going back to the Venn diagram. All these people are experts. Every single one of us have experience, proficiency, and the education to be a subject matter expert. I think me personally, I could find other guys too that have those same qualifications, but truly good humans that I think we all have the same mindset. We want to make a difference. And I think the route we're going to do that, I respect every single one at a very, very high level that I don't think that's always the case in companies.
I think it's rare.
I think it's rare, right? And so...
I think it's talked about, but it's not often true.
Absolutely. And I could not... I could not believe more in the team that we have of that is truth for this company. And so we're bringing the right people in. Some things we're doing. I think the shooting side has really, really grown. We've got a really good team that are very high level shooters, really good educators.
Great instructors, man.
Great instructors.
A lot of experience.
A lot of experience. I have been very fortunate in the last 2 years to go shoot with some super high, world champions to Delta Force operators to GMs to whoever. Yeah, early on, I'd get my ass handed to me. But then I'm getting to a level where it's like, okay, I can compete with these people. Not in a negative way, but like you want to go and perform, right?
Sure.
And I say all that to say...
It's a test.
I have shot with some super high-level shooters. Our dudes are...
They're hold up.
They are. Yeah.
I think part of, again, and we've mentioned the Venn diagram, not to blow it up, but those also come from other places in that diagram.
Sure.
Those other larger circles. So when you talk about like the culture and understanding, and I think there is a wall. And this is the thing that I faced, right? Because I do not have a military or law enforcement background. I'm very upfront about that. Like I'm just a dude.
Yeah.
And trying to understand the inner workings and the pieces, and having people working together that are in these separate places, because working for this agency is much different than working for this agency. Absolutely. We do similar things, but we do not have the same job. Right. And we've worked, as a result, we've worked with multiple people in multiple other places to try to understand things better, what questions to ask, what to say, what not to say, how to have those conversations and know your audience versus, you come from this one place and you're trying to deliver that message to a larger market that has many different market segments in it. That's a thing. Like, I don't think a lot of firearms instruction companies have cared to do, or the way they built their circle or their staff was based on where they all came from together. Right. And so this is a little bit unique in that sense.
Absolutely. And I think also, again, going back to those guys that I've listed off, it's also has to do with ego.
Yeah, for sure.
The ability for them to lower that ego. And honestly, for the most part, they don't have everybody has an ego, but just on what level, right? Those guys to be able to have conversations and talk through things. And listen, there's times where we don't agree on things, and and we shouldn't agree with everything, because then it turns into just an echo chamber. To be able to lower that ego and just talk about things so we actually can grow. From the shooting side is where I'm really talking about right now. And so I think that's just been a huge asset for as the company has grown and been respected as shooters in the community. So this year, I would say we've proven that, considering we are teaching a lot of shooting all over the country.
Yeah, without giving away company financials, it's been very lucrative in a very positive way. And
Definitely.
And not to prop that up, I just think at the end of the day, it's also being treated as a business.
Yeah.
In a sense. And I think that's important because I think that it gets away from a lot of companies and it gets them in trouble. Like we're trying to deliver this service. In order to do that, it has to be organized. We have to treat this with respect.
Absolutely.
And there are things that you may not like doing that you have to do. And so in pulling in the team like this, you have these different skill sets in different areas of making the business go forward in a way where things don't fall. Very few things will fall through things are going to fall through the cracks. That's just part of the thing, but we're not missing major pieces that create problems for the end user.
Right. Exactly. From a selfish perspective, absolutely. Like making sure that we're not jacked up.
Yep.
But the piece, which is what all of us desire, is how are we impacting that end user?
That is critical.
And that's what we are refining. And so from the shooting side, we've really grown this year. Aaron's doing a great job. At the same time, we're seeing continually opportunities from the human performance side as we grow in the shooting side, because people are like, oh, okay, these people do understand the industry. I will tell you all straight up, we're not doing anything different from the human performance side, because straight up, like I believe we've always been doing
it is what it is,
right?
Yeah.
But it's been identified, and I think that is now the next piece, is
making it more accessible.
Exactly,
to the
and
users.
bringing in yourself and Hepner. And I think the next piece, the growth we're about to bring there, from the human performance, but also from the business side, like these podcasts, the accessibility to this information, right? Again, this is just not my personality. It's not the way. I'm not the expert. I am an expert. I don't know all, maybe I should say, nor does any of our team feel that way. However, I think we're putting out really good information that you need to take and use and refine.
That's the goal.
And learn from, right? And I think bringing in guys like...
And that's free.
Absolutely.
That doesn't cost you a thing.
It doesn't cost a single thing. We are putting our money where our mouth is in numerous places. We genuinely give a shit about the community and making a difference, right? We do pro bono work for working with teams. We put out free information. Like, it is not about the money. Fortunately, the business has grown and there are people willing to pay that money. And so we are definitely a business. But at the same time, things like this of making it accessible to really put out that information. Where are we going?
Sky's the limit, man.
Sky's the limit. Like nowhere but up.
Yeah, I believe that too. But I think at the same time, it's very planned and it's being very controlled, and making sure that when we put something out, we can be extraordinarily proud of it.
Yep.
And it can be repeatable, and it's also got flexibility in it to be changed if we find it needs to be changed, and it can be improved. Yep. So it's not at an end state, and we're not looking at an end state. We're looking at we're just looking at a huge period of growth right now. And there'll be some figuring it out along the way, which is the part that I'm the most excited about. I mean, there's some things, again, pulling the team together where we're like, dude, I've done this before. I understand this. Like, not that it's easy, but this is going to be good. Like, we just have to put some stuff together. And there will be some, obviously, there's the courses that people are most familiar with regard to what IEP is doing. But there's been programming existing on for quite some time. We're taking a look at that. We're giving Aaron a little bit more help in getting that stuff out there and taking some stuff off his plate, but also giving him a lot more responsibility in a lot of ways for putting that together and growing it. So people are going to see products and services from the company, but they're going to see way more free, good information, and just us trying to bring. And I don't want to overdo this, but maybe like bringing truth to the matter in a lot of ways. Not like there's not that everything there's a black and white or a right or wrong, but when you talk about certain things, particularly on the human performance side of things, I think that gets left out. A lot of the detail gets left out because people are, again, go back to the don't over science my violence or whatever else. And I've heard that used. And I think that's I agree with that.
I
agree with that.
Especially when those people, because in my opinion, what happens, the people that try to do that, they don't actually know or understand. And so it does turn into oversight because they don't actually understand the definition. They're using it incorrectly.
Right.
There was
That's very frustrating.
Exactly. There was a guy that used he was doing a draw and used a very specific term, super nerd word. And it was incorrect. And everybody freaked out about it. I'm not saying it was wrong, but I just went to the guy and talked to him. I said, hey man, if you don't mind, can we talk about what is the research? Right. He didn't know. Now, we had a discussion about it. He was super cool about it and understand. He appreciated it. Somebody just talked to him about it. You know what I mean?
Yep.
It was definitely over silencing the violence, right? So I think there is a time and place to not do it.
Right.
But also those words do mean things. They're not
matter.
Bad, right? Just got to use them appropriately.
Yeah, so hopefully that's what we're doing, and people aren't taking this as like we're trying to overcomplicate something. But yeah, they do mean something because again, we understand where it goes down the line. So trying to set people up for success. That's all this is. So I'm super excited about IEP and how it's been set, how successful it's been at this point, and how it's set up moving forward.
Yep.
I mean, people are going to hear so many more things as we go down the path.
Yeah. To round it out, the things you can expect, we're amping up the programs. You're going to have more access, more information to those programs, whether it be more simple or ongoing programs. So a static. We've got a lot of courses. We've got options of courses now. We've kind of built out our arsenal, if you will, of you need only human performance, you need only shooting, you need multiple, right? We now have enough of a market response, at least from the people we've worked with. It's like, really, where should we honing those or putting our time and attention?
Yep.
But then we're always growing. And I think we're going to have a lot of free information out there. And so nothing but good things coming. And like you said, sky's the limit.